Hey there, friends. Welcome back to As a Man Thinketh on UNESCO TV. So this is an interesting topic that I wanted to cover. Alabama, this is in Bessemer, Alabama, actually. They are planning a 4.5 million square foot data center project. This data center would cover 700 acres, have 18 buildings over 250,000 square feet, a couple of football fields each. That's just a data center. I think that these data centers should be concerning to all of us, and I wanted to talk about that a little bit. I also just wanted to talk about some AI in general and bring up some changes that the Trump administration has made to artificial intelligence that I don't necessarily agree with, but I see, their point in doing this. So it's an interesting conversation. I'd like to hear what you guys have to say below about it. But number one, data centers like these are often filled with mystery because these city officials, county officials, they get put into these NDA, non-disclosure agreements, where they can't talk about the project that they're then supposed to pass on to their constituents and get passed. And in Bessemer, nobody likes this project. Nobody wants it to go through, but the county commissioners have already, or the county planning board has already passed it. Now it's just up to the county to finalize it and pass it at the commissioner level. Usually the planning board approves something and then it goes in front of the council and then they approve the whole thing. So that's kind of the stage that I believe that is at in Alabama. I might be a little behind on this story, but I believe that's the current stage that it's at.
People who live near the massive project site are suing the city, trying to stop it from being built.
So much opposition. A zoning ordinance vote was removed from the city council agenda this morning. Your reporter, Jillian Brooks, joining us live and on your side to explain what happened at today's meeting and what the lawsuit says. Jillian.
Sarah Morgan, Bessemer Mayor Kenneth Goley tells us that the proposed project will be the greatest, most impactful project in the history of Bessemer. But some neighbors are worried about the impact it will have on their health, along with the environment around the property. Now, the lawsuit claims at least 2 creeks would be impacted by the project, which could endanger bald eagles and watercress darterfish in the area. The plaintiffs also say they weren't given adequate notice of proposed zoning. The mayor tells us he is under a non-disclosure agreement and can't discuss the details of the project, but that he's not surprised that some community members are opposed to the property.
And people are in disbelief over this thing. 700 acres, 4.5 million square feet. And if you look across the country and you look at all these stories about data centers, these things are huge. They're popping up everywhere. A data center can use millions, hundreds of millions of gallons of water a day for their evaporative cooling system. So anybody who lives in areas where there's a lot of drought, where there's water resource problems, they should be concerned. Remember Idaho? There was actually a Facebook data center going into the area where the Idaho curtailment went. And there's been a lot of speculation as to what that could have been, whether it was a power company, whether it had to do with mining, whether it had to do with data centers. I'm sure it had to do with all of the above, right? It had to do with all of the above because even the mining was related to getting rare earth metals that we then need for this type of technology and the growth of artificial intelligence. AI, I think, is going to be the death of society. I mean, think about how many resources these data centers require. And for those of you who think you're progressive, who think you're, moving forward with the greatness of mankind, most of those are also the ones who are running around, quoting the science on climate. These data centers are highly pollutive. They emit more CO2 than anything else. Not that CO2 is a pollutant, and I don't have a problem with CO2. I'm just saying, these people are often hypocrites because they don't understand everything that's involved. They don't understand that if you take away all of the water resources to pump them into data centers, which think for people instead of having thinkers out there, that they're going to starve themselves. You can't take away all the water. You can't take away all the land. And, the land's another thing. We're in a transition period right now, a transition where we're seeing trillions of dollars, like an estimated, I don't even know, like $24 trillion of land being basically transferred, the massive transfer of wealth over the next 20 years, most of that over the next 10 years, because of how many farmers and ranchers across the United States are at retirement age. And then their kids who have been brainwashed since the 1990s didn't want to go back to the farm, don't want the farm life. There was a time in history when being a lord and lady of land was a big deal. That's part of the reason why people came to this country. Now, now they teach you to do other things. Go sit in an office that could be replaced in about 5 years by artificial intelligence. So these kids have all chased these dreams, and these dreams are all about to be replaced as they scoop up all the farmland to build these massive data centers and these solar farms and everything else you see going on. I think it's a big concern. I think we all need to think about it.
Every day, more and more Americans are waking up to the fact that our society is simply unhealthy. We've been being fed poisons and being told to put poisons on our body by corporate America for years. A lot of the things that we've been told were bad for us, like animal fats, are actually good for our bodies. Your skin is the largest organ of your body, which is why on UNESCO Trade & Co., we're pleased to offer you guys bison tallow lotions and creams. These bison tallow lotions and creams are amazing. They're not made by a big corporation. They're made by a homesteader, just like you guys, our friends out of Canada, Dr. Nathaniel and Susan Ostashowski. We've visited numerous bison ranches and farms and parks across the entire continent of North America. And these are some really great people who have come up with some really great products, and you can buy them on UNESCO Trade & Co. and support this program and support your health all at the same time.
Now, on April 28th, Trump actually passed a bill or an executive order to put artificial intelligence in schools to help educate children. The Advancing Artificial Intelligence in Education for American Youth. And I think it's interesting because with Stargate, for example, you saw Sam Altman up with Trump. Not something I thought I would ever see, but it happened. And Sam Altman back, it wasn't too long ago, actually, he was kind of being grilled by Senator of Michigan. What was his name? Yeah, Gary Peters of Michigan. Gary Peters was asking Sam Altman about job losses. And I'm gonna read something to you very interesting about the way that the artificial intelligence world kind of views the replacement of workers like you and I. They're not very intelligent people when it comes to economy. But Mr. Altman basically said, the one thing I think is different this time around than previous technological revolutions is the potential speed. What he means about that is, we've always adapted to technology revolutions throughout the history of mankind. But this is a revolution that's happening so fast, so quickly. It's taking up so many resources. Like, I think if we're not careful, we're going to starve ourselves out, or else we're going to end up all eating something that came out of a lab because there's nowhere else to grow it, nowhere else to make it. And maybe that's the point at the end of the day. Maybe that's what they want, to have ultimate control over your thoughts, to have ultimate control over your income, and I'm going to get to that in a minute, and to have ultimate control over what you put in your food and in your body. I mean, it's a pretty scary thing when you put all of this together and you look at where this fourth industrial revolution is going. And anybody in any capacity, I don't care if I agree with them politically normally, I don't necessarily think that we should be pushing this thing forward. I think this is ultimately a bad deal for humanity. But we're on this path, we're going this way, and I get it. It's convenient. It's convenient when you have technology that does things for you. It's convenient when you don't have to think for yourself. It's convenient when you could have somebody write an essay for you, a computer write an essay for you. It's convenient when you're driving down the road and your phone knows exactly where you are at all times, unless you were at January 6th, and then it wasn't so convenient. This technology can do some very scary things, You lose all privacy, all liberty. Anyway, so basically Sam Altman is saying that we need to put artificial intelligence in people as fast as possible, in front of people as fast as possible. I mean, Bill Gates did this with the computers, putting all Apple computers in schools when we were back in the 80s, okay? And according to Bill Gates, a artificial intelligence could be as good a tutor to any human child. He's not human, by the way. That was a joke. Kind of. So I do agree with what Sam is saying. If you want people to succeed, put it in front of them early so they can figure out how they're going to succeed in this new world of technology. And I think that's where Trump is coming from when he's putting this executive order out there. But I think you should also keep in mind that the UN, UNESCO, and the Chinese Communist Party have also been putting artificial intelligence to the forefront of education, because with that, and I want to get this quote wrong, they can transform the values, attitudes, and behaviors of children worldwide. We're opening the door to that with this order, in my opinion. The other thing Sam Altman said was that he believed that artificial intelligence could replace 70% of the workforce. I think it goes much bigger than that. And I agree with this other article that I read that I'm going to, by Ed Newton Rex. He's a journalist. The title of the article is, "For Silicon Valley, AI isn't just about replacing some jobs, it's about replacing all of them." This is interesting. Listen to this. He says, "I recently found myself at a dinner in an upstairs room at a restaurant in San Francisco, hosted by a venture capital firm. The after-dinner speaker was a tech veteran who, having sold his AI company for hundreds of millions of dollars, has now turned his hand to investing. He had a simple message for the assembled startup founders. The money you can make in AI isn't limited to the paltry market sizes of previous technology waves. You can replace the world's workers, which means you can capture their salaries. All of them."
Many of you have noticed that we keep wearing these leather patch hats that say "Defend the Right to Farm" on them. These leather patch hats support our nonprofit, Meet My Neighbor Productions. You can get your hat at Yanasa Trading Co. and help us defend the right to farm through education, outreach, and, as we've been doing over the last couple of years, farm relief efforts. So get your leather patch hat and let others know that you defend the right to farm.
Now, this is where these people aren't very smart. This is where it becomes ludicrous to listen to these folks, because they really don't know a thing about economy. You see, when somebody goes to work and they earn a wage, that's money that they're making in exchange for productivity that they are putting out. But now they have money to go buy something. And maybe they're not buying the most technologically advanced thing on the market, but they're buying some sort of product at their store, at their grocery store. Hopefully it's at a local shop somewhere, but they're buying some sort of product. And that is giving that business owner money. And the money works its way up the chain. And eventually it gets to those big products that are being made by these artificial intelligence producers and things like that. Of course, artificial intelligence is at every level now. What is it, like $29 a month for, a package with ChatGPT or whatever it is? Point is that, it takes money. It takes somebody working and earning money to then go spend the money to be able to pay these companies. So you could replace all the workers in the world, but you can't collect all the salaries of the workers in the world. So when they talk about capturing their salaries, that's wrong, because they're basically shutting down the economy. If you take out the worker, you take out the salary, you take out the small spending that leads to the big spending that leads to them, the billionaires, the mega millionaires. But maybe they don't need that. Maybe they don't need money to stay satisfied anymore. They have everything. They have the position of power. Take wealth out of the position. They have the position of power, something that none of us have. Because I think in society, it's been generally understood that in order to have a significant amount of power, you have to have a significant amount of wealth. I mean, you can't even run for the president of the United States unless you have a significant amount of wealth, or a significant amount of wealth backing you, in which case you have power. So when you think about the future of this industrial revolution, and these are the types of thoughts that go through my mind. I'm sorry, when I read articles about 4.5 million square foot data centers, this is where my head goes, okay? You guys are getting a little bit of an input here. But when you put it all together and you think, well, what's the future look like? Well, what does it look like? You don't have a job, you don't have an income, right? You don't have to think for yourself. You could completely vegetize yourself and still fit into society with artificial intelligence. There's no liberty, there's no freedom, there's nothing there. And eventually you're just going to eat whatever they give you, because there's not going to be any food if we use all of our natural resources to power this electronic mind that is being built to control and manipulate every part of our being, all the way down to digital currency. Digital currency will eventually just be an allowance that's given out to every single one of us. An allowance is given out to us, and then we feed it back into them and increase their power. There's always somebody at the top of the pole. I mean, what I'm describing now is a shift towards communism, because the free market doesn't work anymore. Okay, with the fourth industrial revolution, this is one of the biggest dangers, is that the free market doesn't work anymore. And when that happens, you have to move to a different system in order for people to survive. But people won't survive in that system. Not at least as human beings, not people. And I think that's what Klaus Schwab says about the fourth industrial revolution, how we may lose humanity altogether. But then he says it could be the best thing for humanity, because then humanity can be completely controlled, and we're out of control. We're out of control children, according to Claus. So all of this stuff is pretty scary if you think about it. Love what you see on UNESCO TV? Get even more on Substack. If you value the real stories, opinions, and in-depth coverage we bring you here on UNESCO TV, you will love what we're doing on Substack. It's our uncensored home for investigative journalism, exclusive updates, and extended content you won't find on YouTube, including early access to stories, opinion articles, and insights into the fight for farmers and ranchers' rights. Join us at UNESCO TV Substack, www.yanasa.tv, and be a part of a growing community committed to truth, transparency, and rural resilience. Stay informed, stay empowered, stay free. Subscription to UNESCO TV's Substack are free. However, paid subscribers get even more content, direct contact with us, and more community involvement in the chat section. One of the other things that I didn't talk about, but I think is kind of interesting, is the noise pollution of these data centers. If you've got one going in near you, think about it this way. Right now I'm sitting outside. I hear airplanes going overhead. I hear my air conditioning unit running. I barely hear nature at all with all the other sounds going on around me. There's nowhere you can get in society today to just hear the sounds of nature. There are some places. I have been to some very remote areas in the North American continent, specifically up in Canada, and some places out west where you really don't hear anything. Out west, you hear the oil drills, tong, tong, and you hear the wind turbines. It's like, okay. So, and you humming of solar panels. But you can maybe get to places where you don't hear anything. Of course, airplanes are everywhere. Point is this enough to drive you nuts? Think about the mental manipulation that has on people, how much it's going to drive people crazy over time as these sounds keep building and building and building and building. The noise pollution is actually, it's pollution. It's bad for you. It's not good for you. It's going to drive you crazy after a period of time. I saw a show. It was one of those crime shows. I can't remember. It was The Blacklist or a different show. I don't know. But the people were freaking out because they couldn't stop the noises. But I feel like that's how people are going to be when they're around these data centers. Just the noise pollution alone is going to drive them nuts. They're going to have the coolers running. They're going to have the HVACs running. They're going to have, all these generators running, and it's going to drive people bats because all you'll have in the background is a hum. You'll never hear the sounds of nature again. It's crazy if you think about it. Anyway, guys, that's just a little tidbit I wanted to put out on As a Man Thinketh today. Stay safe, and we'll talk soon.